For Chef Samin Nosrat, cooking is about a lot more than just the food. It's about culture, community, the emotion behind the meal, and lessons learned along the way. And it's all on display in her new Netflix series.
You're laughing and crying.
Laughing and crying. That's pretty much the story of my life.
It's so spicy. Don't you?
Drink some beer. You okay?
The show is called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, based on a cookbook. Well, not just a cookbook by the same name. The author just won her second James Beard Award and was named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of the year. Samin Nosrat joined me yesterday. Samin, I'm thrilled to meet you. It's so good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Don't be offended by this question. I didn't think anybody on the planet gets more excited about a great bite of food than me. But when I see you and there's this unadulterated joy, please tell me it's real. It's not for the camera. It is,
I don't
right?
know how to act.
Okay, great. Okay. But it is real.
It's totally real.
So almost everybody who sits in that chair, who does what you do, has one of these stories. I never know if they're real or, I was 2 years old by my grandmother's knee, learning to make my first souffle. You're a late bloomer. You're sort of an accidental cook, are you not?
Totally.
Tell the story. What happened?
So I moved to Berkeley from San Diego, where I grew up. My family's from Iran, so my mom is this extraordinary cook, and she really immersed me and my brothers in the foods of our culture. But that's what I grew up eating, not in restaurants, and definitely not in fancy restaurants. So when I moved to Berkeley for college, and at the orientation they said, oh, there's a famous restaurant called Chez Panisse here in town. And I was like, oh, who goes there? And they said, oh, your parents will take you. I was like, maybe other people's parents, but not mine. So I saved my money the next year with my boyfriend for 7 months. We saved $220.
No. To go there?
Yeah, we had like a shoebox because it was this goal to go eat at this fancy restaurant. And we went there and it was really an amazing, amazing experience. And the dessert was a chocolate souffle. And I had never had it before. So the server, I think, I was 19. We were kind of looked out of place there. And so the server said, can I show you how to eat it? And I said, yes. And she said, oh, if you poke a hole in it and pour this raspberry sauce in, every bite will have sauce. So I did that. And she said, how is it? And I said, oh, it's really good, but I'd love a glass of cold milk. And she kind of laughed, and she brought me milk, and she also brought us dessert wine to teach us the refined accompaniment. So it was this amazing moment that we shared, and then when a little while later I wrote a letter asking for a job, she ended up being the floor manager. So we recognized each other.
And you were a literature kid at Berkeley, right? I mean, so this is just totally serendipitous.
Total serendipity.
By the way, I went to Chez Panisse once, and I couldn't afford to go. There's a cafe upstairs, right?
Yeah,
it's cheaper. That's why I went to
the
cafe. So one of the things I love about your show, I actually love everything about your show, other than the fact I read in the Globe this morning, you wear Birkenstocks, which I don't even want to talk about. But, I mean, that's your choice. The thing I love about your show is what I love about Anthony Bourdain's, is you celebrate ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And in this series, from making soy to making salt, I didn't know you made salt till I watched you, to Parmesan. Why do you value that so much?
Well, for me, food has always been about people more than food or anything else. And it's a way to tell stories and to show how we're all connected. And there's so much of food media that tells really beautiful stories about people doing it at the highest levels, people who are celebrated over and over again. And I've always felt like the stories are missing about everyday people and the people who are kind of behind the scenes.
Hard way is the best way with you, is it not?
Pretty much always.
It really is. I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean, I'm watching you make with this older woman, watching you make pesto. And it was so just beautiful to watch, and the connection, the whole thing is great. So, I sort of swallowed the lead. Salt, facet, acid, heat. The theory is you master those four things and you become essentially the master of your own food universe. But flesh it out a little bit for us.
So, but basically, I realized over time that all four of these elements appear in good cooking, no matter where you are in the world. And so salt is what makes food taste more like itself, more essentially itself. It heightens flavor, enhances it. And then fat is what gives us all of the different textures we love, as well as important flavors, like the taste of butter, which is the taste of French food, or the olive oil deliciousness, which is Italian food. And acid is really what it enhances and balances. So whereas salt makes things taste more like themselves. Acid gives food a counterpoint to bounce off of in your mouth. And without that, things fall flat. And heat, of course, is how we cook and how we decide to apply the temperature.
Can we talk about, am I allowed to say which was my favorite one?
Of course, yeah.
Salt was
Yeah.
I mean, it was like
Almost everyone.
So, I'm watching the Salt episode, the first episode, and there are rumors, by the way, I want to confirm with you, that you were going to name it Salt and Lisinopril. That's a blood... I mean, hello. You were cooking, you were cooking green beans. Mm-hmm. You threw what had to be the size of my head amount of salt. No, literally endless amounts of salt. Why should I not worry that that's going to put me in an early grave? I'll be a happy man going, but why should I not worry about that?
So a couple things. One, this kind of salt that I use when I do those dramatic handfuls is called diamond crystal kosher salt, which is one of the least salty salts. It's very, very fluffy and light.
Oh.
So as opposed to the salt, the Morton's that comes in the tube that we all have, it's only a third as salty. So you have to use more to get food to taste the same. So that's one part. And in a pot of water, your goal is to get that environment sufficiently salty so that your food tastes good when it comes out. 99% of the salt I put in there went down the drain.
So I don't have to worry about my blood pressure?
I don't think so. I mean, talk to your doctor.
Okay, well, I'm not a doctor. Speak to one of my favorite scenes also, speaking of the salt episode, is the proper verb for what you did with seaweed called fish? Do you fish for seaweed?
Harvest?
Harvest. Here she is harvesting, or at least attempting to harvest seaweed. Here it is.
Let me try. Have you ever fallen out of the boat? You have to go sort of at an angle. I haven't really figured out the artistry of it.
I was 100% sure you were going in.
Me
Weren't
too.
you? And I was almost disappointed that you didn't go.
I knew it would have made better TV if I
And by the way, that seaweed becomes salt through a process that is just otherworldly interesting. By the way, I didn't know if it was this was a hyperbolic also. You went into a salt store in Japan, which is where you did this whole thing, and the guy said there are 4,000 kinds of salt.
I mean, I don't know. That's what he said.
But there are a lot of kinds of
There
salt.
are many kinds in the store. I didn't count them.
I read an interview with you last night where you said, I'm literally the only brown person who's been given the privilege of talking about general cooking. One, is that true? And why, if it is true, why is that?
I realize there's another non-white person.
Who's that?
Kenji Lopez-Alt, who actually used to work for America's Test Kitchen.
Oh, really?
Here, yeah. And
so why is that?
I think, there is, in this country, people are given authority based on sort of where they come from, maybe a lot of the time. And so for me, I think people always assume I'm an expert in Persian cooking because my family's from Iran. But I learned to cook in a French-Italian restaurant. I lived in Italy for 2 years. That's where my expertise is. My grandma and my mom would laugh if I called myself a Persian food expert. And so it didn't even occur to me that I couldn't do this.
How good does it feel to be one of those two people?
It feels great, but what will feel better is when we expand that number.
Last thing, the only hesitation I have when I'm reading the book and it makes me nervous to a degree. I mean, you assume, I think, that people like me have a level of confidence. You trust us, is what it is. Tell me how to lose the fear that I have about being trusted. I usually want to be told what to do. You don't really tell us what to do. You sort of teach us kind of thing. So tell me how to throw off my fear.
Okay, here's the thing, though, you have to remember is it's only one meal, right? Like, if you mess it up, you can eat something. You can eat a box of mac and cheese or order a pizza and try again tomorrow. Because what makes us good cooks is practice, just like what makes us good at most things. And I think it feels so high stakes because you have to eat it or serve it to other people. But if you just cut yourself a little slack, over time, you'll really see the improvement.
I buy in it. I'm going to try. I mean, it's such a joy.
So nice to meet you.
The book and show again are Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat.